Hi y'all, welcome to my channel, welcome to a new video. DJ Shadow, Our Pathetic Age album review. Let's talk about it. Joshua Davis, aka DJ Shadow, is a DJ, musician, producer who gained notoriety from his 1996 album Endtroducing, the seminal hip-hop album, mainly instrumental, mainly sample-based. It was a turning point for the genre at the time, where sample-based music was barely a thing. It was one of the first, almost completely sample-based albums, and it got a Guinness World Record for that as well. This album led to many people making their own albums of instrumental hip-hop. It is included in 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die, as well as influencing Tom York to edit and loop drums on their album, OK Computer. So if your album can do that, you have a classic under your belt. This isn't really an album review to suck the dick of the album Endtroducing. I like the album. I think it's fantastic. I think another person does like the album as well. What's that guy's name? Robert Christgau. He gave it an A+, so that's good. Nonetheless, we're here to talk about Our Pathetic Age, not Endtroducing. After Endtroducing, DJ Shadow tried to live up to the name that Endtroducing had. I mean, he got close with his sophomore effort, but after that, he just kind of stopped, I guess, trying, and just basically lived with the fact that I'm never going to make another Endtroducing, I'm never going to make another great album, so I'm just going to make out mediocre albums for the rest of my life. And that's exactly what Our Pathetic Age is, except it's not a disc, a single disc, it's two discs. Two discs of music, which spans over an hour long and is unnecessarily tedious. Now, this entire album isn't instrumental. There's actually a first disc of this album that's instrumental, and the second disc that has features on it. So I'm going to talk about these discs separately. So let's start with the first disc. The first disc is 11 tracks long, it's about 40 minutes in length, and to be very blunt, this features some of the worst production DJ Shadow has ever put out on anything, period, point blank. Not only is it some of the worst, there's barely a highlight on this first disc, and it's kind of like, if I could make an analogy for this album, it's like the storm you have to go through to get a rainbow, because this first album, this first disc, is so tumultuously bad that it fails to even accomplish anything other than destroy the career that DJ Shadow had before this. Like, all the other albums before this album, they were bad in their own right, but they weren't atrociously bad. Like, The Mountain Will Fall, or The Less I Know the Better, like, they had problems, but at least they were trying to do something. It just seems like DJ Shadow crapped onto a single disc and put it out on the internet. And I mean, if you can crap music, then that's good on you, but this is like literal shit. This is like dog shit. I mean, some of the production choices on this thing are poorly done. The mixing on this album is bad. And the first song is abhorrently loud. The song Juggernaut is a really bad attempt at making like some trap song or like some like weird trap-influenced EDM song. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Rosie's the only one that I think has somewhat of a decent sound to it. Like, I mean, there's nothing in this first disc that I would go back to because it's enjoyable or it's intriguing in any way. No, like, this is painfully bad. Like really, really bad. Oh, and the song Beauty, Power, Motion, Life, Work, Chaos, Law, that's the entire track title, has some of the most awkward production choices I've heard this year. Like, there's a bass line in the background that's really loud, and then there's some weird drums that come into play, and none of it works. Like none of this album works together. So that's the first disc. Atrociously bad. I really don't need to go in-depth with this first disc, because that's basically all I have. It's nothing interesting, and if this was a first disc only release, you wouldn't hear me talk about it. But the second disc on this thing is somewhat redeemable, but I'll only get to that in a moment. If I were to rate this disc on its own, if it was like a separate album from everything in this album, totally, it would probably get like a D+. It's just that bad. But the second half of this album, the second disc of this entire album, redeems it somewhat, because the second disc of this thing just sounds like completely different from the first disc. Like, it's like, what? The second disc includes 12 tracks, and then you get 3 bonus tracks, so that's 15 tracks total, and they all have features on here, mainly older features like Nas, Inspectah, Ghostface Killah, Raekwon. You also have newer artists like Run the Jewels, which I know they've been around for a while, but together, they work together lately. Dave East is on this album too, and also De La Soul, Wiki. I mean, there's a lot of people on this thing. There's only one track on this that is not featured, has a featured artist on here, and that's the interlude, I Am Not a Robot. Also, Pusha T's on this album too, one of the bonus tracks on here, which, why would you put Pusha T on a bonus track? Like that dude's not a bonus anywhere. That dude is a great feature artist. Why the hell is he on a bonus track on here? Come on, guys, come on. Come on, DJ Shadow, really? But, my complaining aside, this is actually a pretty good second disc. The features on here are pretty nice. The Nas feature, a lot of features are pretty good. They do deliver really nicely. The Run the Jewels feature is alright. It's something to write home about. I mean, I could really kind of dive into every single feature on here, but that's not really important. I'm going to talk about the songs on this thing. I think my favorites from the second disc are Rain on Snow, and, of course, the Pusha T track. Ben Use Ta, the Pusha T track. The song with Dave East isn't that bad, and the first track is probably one of my favorites, Drone Warfare. This features Nas and Pharaoh Monk, if I pronounce that correctly. However, I think the problem with the second disc is that it's trying way too hard to be really deep, really conscious, and it doesn't, attack the political system. It doesn't attack social issues. It attacks the usage of people on their phone, like when people use their phone and that kind of stuff. The track Conform is a great example of this, where there are about 3 features, if I am looking at this correctly. There are a good amount of features on this track, and they all kind of, I don't know, they pertain to saying conforming to what the society wants, or it's just really stupid. It's just really stupid. Also, the track Urgent, Important, Please Read is really dumb as well. Like, a lot of the songs on here that pertain to this aspect of consciousness, but with the phone thing, it's just a lame attempt at trying to push a narrative in an album, and it doesn't even go all the way through this entire album. Like, there are songs on here that don't even talk about phones or, the internet all that much. I mean, maybe that's why DJ Shadow is really trying to push this internet is bad thing, because he's really trying to stay in the 90s with this album, because a lot of what's on the second disc sounds like straight from the 90s. Like, it was pulled from the 90s, from like this weird relic that DJ Shadow had in his house, along with his 60,000 records that he has. And he pulled it out of a vinyl, and he was like, oh, I completely forgot about this, and put it onto a disc, and put it onto 2 discs, actually. And, that's not a terrible thing, because what it's doing, the revivalism that it's kind of bringing to this album, isn't bad. It does have that nostalgia factor to it, so I wouldn't knock this entire disc off completely, because it's a pretty good disc. A lot of the features on here are really nice, really well done, and the production is really well done too, so I'm not going to really knock it off completely for that. It's 90s sound, sounds like a West Coast album. It's nothing too bad. It's nothing too bad, alright? But completely, if I were to rate this disc on its own, I would give it a B minus. A B minus would be sufficient for this album. But as a whole, because I don't want to look at this album just as 2 discs, this is an album that was released altogether, including the bonus tracks on this thing and the hour, 90 minutes this album runs. It's not atrocious the entire time, but I wouldn't want to sit through it all that much. Averaging these two scores out would give about a C on this album. And that's pretty accurate because, man, I hated the first disc. I didn't mind the second disc. I guess when they come together, they make a pretty decent, mediocre album. Nonetheless, a C would be sufficient. It would suffice. Alright, outro. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this album down below. Let me know what albums you want me to review next, and that is it. Leave a like, comment, share, do whatever you want. Let me know how I can improve future videos down below, and remember, this is only my opinion, because music is subjective.